Hey folks, welcome to the channel. In today's build, I'm going to be forging my first Journeyman Smith knife for the presentation test. My first one is going to be a Bowie knife. I'm starting with stock that's 3/16 of an inch thick and it's 80 CRV2 steel. I usually like to start from the tip of the knife and work my way back. Here I'm hammering in the corners of the front of the steel to form that tip. Now I'm just slowly tapering the tip just so I don't get it folding over at the front. We refer to that as the dreaded fish lips. We don't want that. If you're curious on the designation of steel, 80 CRV2 is really just the 1080 steel, which is around 0.8% carbon, hence the 80. The CR, a little bit of chromium added, and V, which is vanadium, and that's for extra toughness. So it's a really good knife steel. Now we can start to see the blade kind of take shape, but this is not what you think, and I'm going to show you in a little bit why. Here's what I mean. You may think that rounded part is the edge of the blade. It's actually not. That's going to be the spine. As I hammer in the bevels, that's going to give me that swoop on the top of the spine where we put the false edge in. Now that I'm starting to hammer in the bevels, you'll see it start to curve upwards. Now you probably see what I mean. It's starting to look like that traditional Bowie shape. After doing a little comparison to my pattern, I want to just add a little bit of width right near the ricasso, right where the recurve starts. Then I'm going to start to put in my tang. Once I mark out where the tang goes on the anvil, I get a little lazy and decide I'm going to go to the press and compress this steel here so I don't have to hammer it. Now we'll cut off the extra steel with the angle grinder, move to tongs, and finish shaping our tang. Here I'm doing some final refinement on the blade, getting the tip perfect, and then I'll take it to the press just to flatten it out before I'm done forging. Here's the blade after forging. It's also been annealed. The one thing that I do see now, it used to have more of a swoop here, but I think the final flattening in the press I think kind of brought that up or brought this down for some reason. So I'll just have to put that in on the grinder. It is a bit narrower than my profile, my usual profile, which is what I wanted. I wanted this one to be a little sleeker. So, this ricasso is quite a bit bigger than I want. So the tang is actually probably going to come up to here. But let's get to the grinder and put a better profile on this knife. So it's come off the surface grinder pretty flat. Got a bit of a bevel on this side, which is fine. We're going to take that out when we put the actual bevel on. Now let's put the false edge in first, and we'll get to grinding.
I've shown this in a bunch of videos, but anytime I have to do an upswept false edge, I always use my grinding jig. It's the only way to get it perfect. Time to do the initial pre-heat treat grind on the bevels. I'm using one of Broadbeck's Incinerator 36 grit belts, best on the market.
Here it is after initial grinding. It's pretty good. You know, a couple little things here, but we'll get that in the final grind. Right now it is ready for heat treat and going through all of the cycles. Let's go over to that. Because 80 CRV likes to decarb a lot, what I'm going to do is actually put it in stainless steel foil. I'm going to do all my normalization cycles with it in a stainless steel pouch. For the final heat treat, we'll take it out, we'll do it normally just so we can quench it in oil. So let's get our little pocket all fitted up here.
The knife went through my usual round of normalization and green refinement cycles, and now it's going into the quench. This is Park's AAA oil. This one came out exactly at 60 HRC after the temper. The first thing I did after the heat treat and temper is take it to the mill and square off the shoulders. Now to do the final grinding and get that edge down to about 20 thousandths.
So here's the blade. I didn't take you guys through the hand sanding, but I'm going to talk about it a bit here. So for the Journeyman Smith knives, they recommend to only sand them to 400. But the important thing is just to make sure there's no grind lines, no scratches, and all of the sanding marks go in one direction. So what I've done is actually sand it up to 800, and then I'm going to take it back down and just put 400 grind lines, 400 sandpaper marks, all in the same direction. And you got to make sure you get all of the plunges. Everything's got to be crystal clear. And I'm really happy with this. I spent a lot of time getting the plunges just perfect, getting the false edge, just try to make the grind as perfect as possible.
Before any final sanding, we want to move on to the guard and get that fit up, because you might scratch the blade.
You just saw me mill the slot in the guard, so now we're going to fit the guard onto the knife. First thing I'm going to do is tape it up, then we'll put it in the vise, hammer on the guard, and make sure we get a good fit. If I don't get a good fit, we're going to do it again. Well, folks, you'll see that there's no guard on this knife. That's because it just wasn't fitting the way I wanted. I'll put a video up here with what it looked like. And some of you may think, oh, that looks great, but there was gapping that I didn't like, and a Mastersmith would certainly find it. I would show you, but I got mad and threw it across the room, and now I can't find it. So, we're going to start over with some new material. Here's the new guard with the slot milled into it. You can see kind of the step down there. Let's hammer it on to see if this one fits better. I called up Michael Vagnino, the Mastersmith that I've been working with, and here's what he suggested. Ditch the leather, move to an actual kind of a fake guard, put that on top and hammer it down until you get an impression in the top of the guard that's at least a few thousandths. And what that does, I can get it back on here, is inset the guard right into the ricasso. So that's what it's. There's probably a little dirt in it right now, but that's what I've done. For the handle material, I've decided to use this block, which I think, it's an ash burl from my man Oleg Bashkevich. As always, I will put a link down to his website in the description. He has the best stabilized wood on the planet. So I think this will look really cool. This is kind of rippled, and there's kind of the pattern of the handle. It'll be a little bit straighter than normal. All right, time to put a rough shape on the guard. This one's going to be something like this, and then kind of like this. It's going to be relatively simple, which is what most people suggest for these. And then I did a rough, if you guys can see that, something like this on the top. Something like that. I drew out the tang. You'll notice that I kind of took the curve off the tang. There was no reason for it. Now that I straightened it out, it'll be a lot easier to drill it into the handle, because it's just two straight drill shots. So that'll make my life easier, and I may just shorten it to there.
You'll see here that I use my finger to press on the drill. Sometimes if you get your drill bit off a little bit, that helps you. Don't worry, I'm pressing on the flat part of the drill. Drilling the hole for the tang went pretty smooth. It's all about lining it up.
There we are, all fitted up. Bit of an angle, but we'll fix that when we grind the block.
Now I'm spending some time contouring and shaping the guard. It sure helped to have this multi-axis rest from Contender Machine Works. I'll do another video on this in a little bit. Time for some good old hand filing.
Okay, so I've spent some time. I've squared up the block to the blade, and now, and redrew the pattern on the side. Now I'm going to drill this hole. And to do this, I'm going to drill down, just touch the steel, pull the knife out, drill it separately, because if you try to drill through the steel, you're going to flex the bit and you get a little, it'll screw up the wood here. So that's what we're going to do.
I started with the same 3/16 bit, and then I move up to a 1/4 inch bit so that there's a little play in the handle and the pin isn't stopping you.
So I'm finally ready for glue up. I'm going to do the shaping on the handle after it's glued on. I've got the guard the top all finished, roughly sanded on the sides here. Again, all this stuff I'm going to sand after. So, got my pin ready. Now, We're going to epoxy it. I took a bunch of sawdust from the handle just in case for the inside. Now, let's glue it.
You guys don't see it, but the first 4 inches of the blade are clamped in the vise in some leather. This way you can use one of these long clamps and you don't have to worry about the tip going into the clamp. Here I'm going slowly and just taking off the hard edges and keep putting 45s on it until I get it about the same on each edge. I move over to the small wheel when I get close to the guard just so I have a little more control. I don't want to hit this guard. After this, there's just a whole bunch of hand sanding that I'm not going to show you.